Hey everyone, it's Yuto from sesame and today I'm gonna show you how to make the crispiest and most delicious tonkatsu pork cutlet with homemade sauce. This recipe only takes about 20 minutes, so let's get started. I'm gonna start by making the tonkatsu sauce, so grab a small jug or bowl and add 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce and a tablespoon of soy sauce, a tablespoon of sesame seeds, a tablespoon of ketchup, a pinch of light brown sugar, and mix it together. This sauce is great because it uses accessible ingredients, tastes delicious, and literally only takes a couple of minutes. Once it's mixed, set aside. Next, I'm going to prepare the pork, and I have lots of tips and tricks to share with you today. I've got 2 thick pieces of pork shoulder here, and the first step is to make cuts in the fatty parts. This step stops it from curling and breaks the muscle between the fat and the meat, making it less chewy and more tender. Pork loin is also commonly used for tonkatsu. Once you've cut the fat, season each side with a pinch of salt and pepper. The next step is tenderizing. I start by wrapping the pork in plastic wrap and then use a rolling pin or something steady to pound it. We do this to help soften the meat and make it more tender. This step is the reason why I would recommend using a thick cut of pork. Tenderizing like this can make the pork quite flat, so using thick piece helps us avoid flat or thin tonkatsu. I'll recommend pounding it until it's about 2 centimeters thick. That's a bit less than 1 inch. Okay, this looks good to me, so let's set up our coating station. Here I have whisked egg, flour and panko breadcrumbs. I like to add a tablespoon of whole milk and a teaspoon of oil to the egg. The milk thins it out and makes it easier to apply to the pork, and the oil helps keep the flavour inside meat and stops the breadcrumbs from falling off. Once you have mixed those together, we can coat the pork. I start with a thin layer of plain flour. This is to help the egg stick to the surface. Make sure to dust off any excess, otherwise the egg won't stick evenly. Next, we dip in the egg mixture. Make sure it's well coated. Finally, we coat in the panko breadcrumbs. Those are soft panko breadcrumbs made with fresh bread rather than dried bread. The crumbs are about 2 to 3 times bigger than the dry type, so the crumb coating becomes extra thick and crispy while still being light. Make sure to be very generous with the panko breadcrumbs and press them down firmly to ensure they're properly attached to the surface of the pork. Once it's thoroughly covered like this, transfer it to the oil. This oil has been preheated to 170 degrees Celsius, which is about 340 Fahrenheit. Tonkatsu should be fried for about 4 minutes on each side, so 8 minutes in total, turning halfway through. This pot is not big, so I'm gonna be deep frying each katsu one at a time. Of course, if you have a bigger pot, you can cook them at the same time. Just make sure not to overcrowd the pan because it will lower the temperature of the oil. It's also important to use an oil with a high smoke point such as vegetable oil, peanut oil or canola oil, and make sure there's enough oil so that the pork is floating around while it cooks. If it's touching the bottom of the pot, the breadcrumbs can burn, so make sure to use enough oil. I'm pretty lucky because this pot has a thermometer attached, but if you can't measure the oil temperature, drop the breadcrumb in. If it sizzles and floats, then your oil is ready. It's not so accurate, but it's a technique used by many people in Japan. When you first add the pork to the oil, you will hear that it cracks loudly. This is the oil reacting with the moisture in uncooked meat. As it cooks, it will gradually become quieter. Once you have let it deep fry for 4 minutes on each side, transfer it to a wire rack to allow the excess oil to drip off. Tonkatsu is typically cut into strips to make it easy to eat with chopsticks, so let's transfer it to a chopping board. Cut each strip about 1 centimeter or half an inch thick. If you look here, you can see that it's cooked all the way through and the outside is perfectly crispy. We usually serve tonkatsu with shredded cabbage, rice and miso soup. Drizzle your homemade sauce over the top and there you have it. Delicious, perfectly crispy Japanese tonkatsu pork cutlet. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recipe, be sure to like it and support my channel by subscribing and checking out some of my other recipes. Hope to see you again next time. Thanks again.